Was a really fun weekend. I think our match against Drake was a little disappointing, and our offense, I think, for the first time this season just didn't show up numbers-wise, and there was some frustration in that, but Drake is a really physical, good team, so it was good for us to play them. We fell short in that and had some negative takeaways from that, but I think our response the next day was really strong against two teams that we need to be beating, but I think it's hard to contain any team to under 100 hitting percentage and also just hit the way we did. And so a great offensive response, holding our defensive standard, and then just fun. It's hard to play two matches in one day. So to kind of do that while maintaining control of both matches for an entire day was really, really good to see.
When you do some of these tournaments, I guess, what's the process of kind of getting involved in them? Because when you know, this one obviously is across the country. A lot of times it happens, it'll be like a regional thing or like a Western U.S. thing. So, to go to a place like Indianapolis, like how did this happen and how did the program get a chance to go out and do this?
Yeah, it's interesting in volleyball. You basically just send emails. And so we're, in years prior, in the spring of last year and even the fall before that, you're just kind of sending emails and seeing what kinds of tournaments match well. I think our coaches group in the Big Sky has done a lot of work into strategizing how we want to raise our conference RPI, which is the only way you really get additional bids to the NCAA tournament at large bids. And so every team's winning percentage really matters coming into conference. And so we had a goal of we want to be 800 in our preseason. And so that factored into the types of tournaments that I was interested in and looking into. And, there's moments when it's like, okay, we can get close to some senior or junior's hometown and we can kind of do things that way or find a city that would be really fun to go visit. But mostly it's about finding wins against teams who win or wins, period. And so some of this is targeting teams who win a lot that we can go beat, and then also just tournaments where we can be 3-0.
Couple of tournaments now kind of under your belt, like when the dust kind of settles on them, are there like immediate takeaways that you've noticed maybe are consistent with every tournament that you can immediately pull from these games? Just so many games in so few days. Like, is there anything that kind of stands out in that regard? Yeah,
I think as we go over the film, there's just some organizational things and breakdowns that are common across matches. And so, we'll get into those tactics right away on Monday mornings after the weekend. And I think Drake was a little bit of an outlier in what our offense was doing. I think we usually produce at a higher rate regardless of win-loss. So there were just some things offensively that I think we really wanted to address this morning. But yeah, I think there's some themes and breakdowns that get pretty specific just to the rotations and kind of tactically where we're at in games, what matchups we get, things like that. So yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is there's lots of details in that aren't interesting really, but definitely applicable right away.
Then Paige, just from the player's perspective, to get a chance to, travel kind of across the country, go play 3 games, get a couple wins. Just what was it like, getting that experience and, getting that first road experience of the season?
It was super fun. I mean, traveling anywhere in general is super fun. And then when you get to do it with your team, it just makes it that much more enjoyable. And so getting to work through the ups and downs this weekend, like Ali said, there were times where we were struggling, but we worked out of them. And so the first day when we lost to Drake, it wasn't what we wanted. So we had a really good talk in the locker room, and then the next day we came out firing, and we were doing everything that we wanted to work on from the Drake game. And so it's super fun to see how we can prepare after one game and just come out back on top after a loss.
And to start the season 4-2, at this point, and a lot of road games coming up, just the thoughts on where the program is right now to kind of have a hot start, to the season.
I think it's pretty good. It's exciting to see how we're playing and starting to come together as a group. And I mean, obviously we all have that end goal, but I think we're all just going to take one game at a time and try to prepare as best as we can for each situation. And we're all super close, and I feel like we're going to do this together, and that's what's going to be fun about the whole thing.
Paige, you obviously, like Nick said, named the Big Sky Player of the Week. How did you find out about that, and how did you feel to get that honor after you've been swinging the first couple weeks here?
It was actually this morning at practice. We were just sitting there, and we were talking, and then Ali just said my name, and I kind of thought I was in trouble. I was I looked up, I was oh no, was I not doing something? And then she just said that I got the Big Sky. And I was super excited, but it was super fun how supportive the team is. everyone has like been texting me congrats, and it just like shows that it's not just like an individual thing. It's like the whole team earned it. Like I couldn't have gotten it without the defense producing digs to get me to do that, without the setter or anything. It's like a whole team thing, not just like an individual player situation.
And just to have the weekend go the way it did, where you don't have the effort you wanted Friday, but you come back Saturday, play 2 matches in one day. I imagine that was pretty taxing, but had to feel pretty good at the end of Saturday with 2 wins in your belt.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like, I mean, 2 games is a lot, especially like at this level where everything's like super fast and up pace. But once you like get in the game, it kind of just like you don't really like get tired. I feel like I don't really feel like I ever miss super exhausted during the games. And so at the end of the day, I was tired, but it was so worth it. Like to come out with those 2 wins, like with the team, it was just awesome.
And then, Allie, when you can watch your team win 2 matches in one day like that, how nice does that feel momentum-wise, knowing that your team won't wear down throughout the course of a day?
It feels really good. And I think, the conference tournament feels like so far from right now, almost impossible to even think about. But our tournament plays back-to-back days, and we want to be a team that is winning back-to-back. And there's no multiple games on one day scenario, but we don't play back-to-back in conference. And so I think preseason has a nice little bridge to postseason where just mentally you have to be ready to win a game, execute scout, eat a sandwich, and do it again. And so literally eat a lot of sandwiches. But I think that mental, all of this is really for being able to put our focus where we want it to. And I think they're doing such a good job at that. So I was really proud of them.
And do you feel like you're deep enough into the season to have an evaluation of the team at this point and how you feel about them after a few of these non-conference tournaments?
Yes, definitely. There's some consistent pieces that show up in our offense and defense, and I just think we're seeing, Paige is one of those people that night after night executes at a certain level. And so I think as we go on, the expectation is that it's not just repeatable by accident, but it's repeatable every night in a way that gives us a ton of confidence. So there's patterns that we have that I think will continue to show up and be resilient in all contexts, which is really fun. And then there's some breakdowns in there too, where it's fun to plan practice around those things and just see, okay, can we tweak this and eliminate this from kind of our patterns. And so, yeah, I feel like I know them really well. And this group is largely returning as starters from last year. And it's been fun to see their growth compared to last year because it's a lot of the same players in the same spots. Yeah.
When you schedule these multi-team event tournaments, does that allow you guys to play more non-conference games than if you were just scheduling single games? Yeah, it's tricky, and I think a lot of the country is almost going away from multiple games in one day because you can kind of drop a game you shouldn't just in that second game of the day. Fatigue plays a big part, and I think volleyball, historically has been thought of as a game that's not physically taxing for some reason. I don't know why, but it is. It's incredibly taxing, and I think with injuries to shoulders and knees and just overuse things, I think coaches are really thinking differently about how they're scheduling in those moments. So what's really hard is making sure if you do play 2 in one day, you're not playing 2 really difficult 5-set matches in one day. So trying to balance the strength of schedule that way. And sometimes when you go to a tournament, you have no control. They put you in whatever slot you're in, and that's what you kind of have to go with. So some teams are getting maybe an hour rest in between matches. And so, yeah, I think that's something that's been on my mind of, can we go to tournaments where we only play 1 a day? But again, there's a financial component to that, and all the teams have to agree to only get 2 matches because, like your question suggests, we need the more matches we can play in preseason, the better off we are, better tested for fall. So it's a big balancing act. I don't know. There's no perfect answer. More so just if there's an NCAA limit on non-conference games, and if that number goes up when you play in tournaments.
Yes, for sure. And I think the debate around the limits are about what's responsible in the long run. Should we even be playing 2 matches in one day, or should it just be 1? So it's an ongoing debate, and I think you're going to see things sway more towards 1 match a day. Yeah.
And for either of you guys, how much do you look around at what the other Big Sky Conference teams are doing? And if you do, just what's your takeaway
the play from those teams?
I am a film junkie, I think, and so when I'm just sitting there, I'll go look at other teams and see what they're doing. I love volleyball, so I love to see how other teams are playing, and so I'm definitely always on the look for what the other teams are looking like, especially Montana State.
I think we look at other teams a lot out of curiosity, just wondering who's doing well, who's struggling, and why. But I think also, and this, I don't know if this is, I don't know, but I think in general we want our conference to succeed in our non-conference play, because our conference getting stronger nationally is really good for all of us. And so there's part of you that is always okay, we want to make sure we're ahead of all our opponents in conference, but also there's a part of all of us as a coaching group, and I think as athletes, that are yeah, we want the Big Sky out there winning. I think that's really important. And so we have a really good volleyball conference, and I want that to continue. And so I think it kind of feels collaborative at this part of year, even though you're oh, they're doing well, we can't wait to face them. So yeah, it's a good question.
Last thing I have is, Paige, a year ago you were a freshman, just kind of adjusting to college life. You were a setter at the time. Now you're an outside hitter, being named the Conference Player of the Week. You were an all-conference selection last year. So what has the last year been like, and what do you attribute to your success as an outside hitter, considering a year ago you were expected to be a setter?
I would just say in high school I played a lot of positions. It wasn't I wasn't primarily a setter, I hit and stuff. And I'd consider myself a pretty competitive person, so I always just give it everything I have, and I feel that's what makes me successful, is that when I get on the court is I want to give whatever I can to the team to help make them all successful. And then if that's me trying to hitting as many balls as possible to get kills, that's what I'm going to do for the overall goal. Yeah.